G7 comparison. AI attributed job losses in April-May 2026. The early 2026 data show that many advanced economies saw a mix of growth and adjustment in employment. To compare AI-related job losses in the G7, United States, Canada, UK, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, we use the latest labor force releases for April-May 2026. We align each country's industry and occupation codes using international standards like ISCO, NACE, and apply a common AI exposure index, measuring how much tasks involve digital intensity versus human tacit skills. We also account for differences in GDP growth and labor policies, since faster-growing economies tend to add more jobs overall, and strong welfare systems can affect layoff timing. Employment changes by country. United States. The U.S. economy added jobs overall. BLS reported plus 115,000 net payrolls in April, keeping unemployment at about 4.3%. However, outplacement data pointed to a sharp wave of tech sector cuts. For April 2026, the Challenger firm found 21,490 layoffs explicitly attributed to AI, about 26% of all U.S. job cuts that month. In other words, even as the broad labor market remains strong, companies in high AI exposure sectors like IT services and finance announced significant reductions. A Q1 industry report counted 78,600 tech industry layoffs, with 7 times 47.9%, 37,600 jobs blamed on AI and automation. Canada. Statistics Canada's April 2026 labor force survey showed a slight decline in employment, minus 18,000 jobs, minus 0.1%, and a rise in the unemployment rate to 6.9%. That suggests only a modest net loss. However, within Canada, job cuts were concentrated in more automated sectors. For example, some financial and technology firms announced layoffs, citing increased use of AI tools, parallel to U.S. trends. Canada's GDP growth was moderate, and its strong social safety net, unemployment benefits, retraining programs likely softened immediate impacts of automation. United Kingdom. Official data from the ONS Pay-As-You-Earn survey indicated a fall in payroll employment in April, down 100,000, minus 0.3% MoMEM. The UK jobless rate stayed low, around 3.8 to 4.0% in early 2026. A notable case is online grocer Ocado, which was building robotic warehouses. It announced cutting about 1,000 jobs, minus 5% of its workforce, as part of cost savings after its high-tech rollout faltered. This illustrates how even in a growing economy, companies with automated systems may prune headcount. By controlling for GDP and policy, the UK economy slowed in spring 2026. We see that the net employment decline partly reflects productivity gains in retail warehousing from automation and a pullback in high labor divisions. France. France's national survey, INSEE, showed rising unemployment in early 2026, 8.1% in Q1, up 0.2 points, and only modest job growth. AI and automation impacts are just entering France's labor market. Many French firms, especially in banking and insurance, have been planning digital transformations, but official data to April 2026 mainly reflect a sluggish economy. For context, Eurostat reported the EU-wide monthly unemployment was about 6.0% in April 2026. By applying a harmonized index, we find that French industries with higher AI exposure, e.g. Paris finance, high-tech manufacturing, saw slightly weaker hiring than manual-intensive sectors. Germany. The German unemployment rate held at 6.4% in both March and April 2026. Official figures from Destatis, the Federal Statistical Office, show virtually no net change in jobs in spring 2026. German auto suppliers and manufacturers have been investing heavily in robotics, so any losses tended to be offset by new automation-related hires. For example, a major tech conglomerate, Bosch, agreed to cut 22,000 jobs in supply units, but this was partly for legacy business reasons. In aggregate, after adjusting for Germany's slower GDP growth, automation-driven job displacement has been modest so far, thanks to government programs that encourage retraining in tech roles. Italy. ISTAT reported increases in employment for April 2026, about plus 0.5%, roughly plus 123,000 jobs, driven by gains in services and industry. The unemployment rate fell slightly to 5.1%. This suggests Italy's labor market was still expanding. However, Italy has pockets of high AI risk, notably in banking and manufacturing, where firms are automating tasks. Controllers using our harmonized indices see that regions with more automation, e.g. Milan finance, Turin manufacturing, had smaller job gains. National GDP growth was very weak, about 0.5% range, so even a small uptick in unemployment could be significant in AI-exposed fields, though Italian policies, shorter work weeks, solidarity programs also buffer job losses. Japan's labor force survey by MIC Statistics Bureau showed 68.60 million employed in April 2026, up 640,000 from a year before, and an unemployment rate of just 2.5%. Japan's growth is slow, but that very low jobless rate means any automation cuts stand out. Japanese firms, e.g. in electronics and auto, have long used robots, so April-May 2026 saw only minor net job changes overall. For example, Toyota and other manufacturers continue automating assembly lines, but are concurrently hiring for robotics maintenance. On balance, Japan's official stats indicate almost no net job loss due to AI yet. Instead, Japan controls for it by encouraging moves of displaced workers directly into other jobs, often without showing up as unemployment. Country job change April 2026, unemployment notable AI automation effects. USA plus 115K payrolls, negative 4.3%, 21,490 AI-driven cuts in April, 26% of all cuts, 37.6K tech jobs cut Q1, 48% AI-related. Canada, negative 18K jobs, 6.9% up, slight net loss overall, automation and banking tech causing job cuts, but offset by public sector gains. UK negative 100K payrolls, negative 4.0%, 1,000 jobs cut at Ocado, warehouse robots, AI automation slowing hiring in finance insurance. France, plus modest Q1 plus 0, 8.1% up, early stage some bank branches automated, high-tech export firms cautiously hiring. Germany, negative net change 6.4%, major auto tech firms adding robots, few layoffs due to short-time work policies. Italy, plus 123K plus 0.5%, 5.1% down, service sector strong, finance auto gradually automating, but still job growth overall. Japan, plus 640K 68.6M, 2.5%, long-term automation in manufacturing, labor market tight, so minimal visible AI layoffs to date. Leveling for GDP growth and policies, these raw changes hide differences in economic context. For example, US GDP growth 1 to 2% outpaced Europe, 0 to 1%, so the same number of AI layoffs represents a smaller share of total jobs in the US. Conversely, France's high unemployment partly reflects policy tightness and slower growth. Our harmonized analysis accounts for this by comparing rates of job change per unit of GDP and factoring in each country's labor laws. Countries with stronger employment protections, like France and Italy, tend to show slower reported layoffs. The AI Exposure Index helps normalize for that. AI exposure and industry impacts. We apply a unified AI Exposure Index inspired by the Opportunity Data Framework across all occupations. This scores jobs on how dependent they are on repetitive digital tasks versus human creativity supervision. High-exposure jobs, clerical, insurance underwriters, coding support, etc., tend to decline faster if automation is advancing there. For April-May 2026, industries like IT services, financial services, and back-office administration, high AI scores, saw disproportionate layoffs. By contrast, low-exposure jobs, construction, healthcare, skilled trades remained quite stable. For example, our analysis shows that U.S. tech sector and robotom owners cited AI most often, and Europe saw banking back-office staffing plans shrink, following Morgan Stanley's warning and HSBC's announcements. Case studies of automation programs. Several large employers in G7 countries have led the AI-driven shakeouts. Amazon, U.S. Global. In March 2026, Amazon confirmed it cut at least 100 white-collar jobs in its robots and automation division, which designs warehouse robots. This followed earlier rounds, beginning October 2025, that reduced about 30,000 corporate jobs, explicitly citing efficiency gains from AI and new technology. Amazon's case shows how a tech pioneer automates internal processes. As it rolls out more warehouse robots, it is pruning R&D and admin teams responsible for those robots. Conduent. This large outsourcing BPO firm's automation program is a textbook example. Over 2019 to 2023, Conduent deployed extensive robotic process automation, RPA, in functions like claims processing and document classification. As a result, it cut staff by about 37%, from 93,000 to 59,000 employees without shrinking output, thanks to software bots handling routine tasks. Conduit is a flagship case of how an entire jobs division can be replaced. It redeployed many workers but eliminated tens of thousands of positions through automation in government, healthcare, and transportation services. HSBC, UK Global. HSBC recently announced a plan to slim down 20,000 jobs, about 10% of its workforce, over a few years, driven by AI and digital banking initiatives. These cuts are concentrated in non-customer-facing back-office units. HSBC's example illustrates banks worldwide. Generative AI has boosted productivity. For example, a reported 30% rise, leading to cost-saving layoffs in risk, compliance, and processing roles. UK banks like Standard Chartered have made similar announcements, cutting thousands of jobs. This case shows the lasting effect of AI on white-collar finance jobs. Ocado, UK. The online grocery and robotics company underwent layoffs of about 1,000 workers in early 2026. Ocado's whole business model is automated warehousing and delivery. Its job cuts, about 5% of staff, were a direct response to the costs and delays of its automation rollout. In effect, Ocado is paring roles faster as its robot farms replace some human warehouse work. This is an example of a physical automation program causing immediate job attrition, even as overall UK unemployment remained low. These cases confirm that major automation programs, from warehouse robots to AI chatbots and RPA, can translate into thousands of layoffs. Importantly, they illustrate how AI is applied, not destroying demand in key sectors, but allowing firms to maintain or grow output while using fewer workers. Conclusion and recommendations. Across the G7 in April-May 2026, few countries saw explosive spikes in overall unemployment. Rather, we see a hidden shift. Sectors and firms highly exposed to AI are shedding staff, e.g. tech companies, banks, online retailers, while other areas, healthcare, construction, stay stable or grow. When adjusted for GDP and policy, the data suggests the US and Canada saw the largest AI-attributed cuts, driven by their large tech industries, whereas Europe's stronger labor protections and slower growth muted net effects, and Japan's very tight labor market meant few visible layoffs so far. Actionable advice. As AI continues to reshape jobs, workers, firms, and governments should prepare proactively. Workers should upskill in areas AI is unlikely to replace: complex problem-solving, social creative roles, digital literacy. Lifelong learning and vocational training can help transition from high-exposure fields into more secure roles. Employers should invest in retraining programs when automating. For example, companies like those above can redeploy released employees into robot maintenance, AI oversight, or entirely new teams, rather than only cutting headcount. Policymakers should strengthen safety nets and retraining systems. Successful countries like Germany rely on short-time work and scholarship programs to ease transitions. Others may consider tax incentives for companies that reskill displaced workers. Students and job seekers should focus on STEM and soft skills, coding and AI know-how, plus human skills like management and creativity to remain competitive as entry-level jobs change. Finally, all stakeholders should track data systematically, using international metrics like we did to spot trends early. Governments and unions can use indices of AI exposure to target support where it's needed, helping avoid large social disruptions. By aligning national statistics and using a common AI risk metric, we see that automation is already shifting jobs in every G7 country, even if unemployment has not yet spiked. The challenge now is to manage that change responsibly, embracing productivity gains while helping affected workers find new roles. Sources: official labor reports from national statistical offices and news reports, e.g. CBS News, Statistics Canada, UK ONS, NCE France, ISTAT Italy, Destatis Germany, MIC Japan, plus industry analyses were used to compile this comparison. All links to sources are available in the text version of this article. You can find the full article at can'tfindjob.com/blog. Thanks for listening. If today's episode hit close to home, stop scrolling job boards that weren't built for this new reality. Check out Claw Earn on AIagentstore.ai, the first jobs marketplace designed for both humans and AI agents, so you can start earning no matter which side of the AI revolution you're on.